Hello, I'm Jeff Ondash, and welcome to Business as Usual. Here in Youngstown, it's become a family tradition to come to the Arms Family Museum on Wick Avenue because at Christmas time, they transform it into a Christmas wonderland of the past that every family year after year after year wants to come and see. The nice thing about it is you're not seeing the same thing every year. It's something different every single year. And how you guys do this is amazing. Every room is transformed into a period of the past of how Christmases were celebrated years and decades ago. I'm here with one of my favorite people. How are you today, buddy?
Good, Jeff. Thanks for coming out today.
Alrighty. So let's talk about this. This is not something, because how many rooms, first of all, are in the Arms Family Museum?
Well, we have 7 rooms here on the first floor. Then we have the second floor galleries, which were former bedrooms, and an upstairs sitting room. So there's another 8 up there. And then we have 2 spaces in the basement level that we have open to the public, which makes for a pretty large museum in terms of number of rooms. But the house is really, for its size, rather cozy. And so within larger rooms, you find smaller ones, like in the entrance hall, which has an ingle nook where you can kind of sit off to the side. And it's very unique style, very high style for its period, which was 1905 when it was built. And that makes a perfect setting for what we've been doing 14 times now with Memories of Christmas Past. This is the 14th edition. We only missed one year in 2020, but it has become a perennial favorite, a tradition for a lot of people. They come back year after year, and we're so happy to see them.
And not just Youngstown. This is a Mahoning Valley tradition now.
It's a Mahoning Valley tradition. We've actually been going further out, so we're getting a lot of interest up in Cleveland and also Western Pennsylvania. So it has a draw for sure.
Okay, so let's take a step before we get into the Christmas part of it. Just a very brief history of this home.
It was built in 1905 by Olive and Wilford Arms. They moved in that year, and it was their home until they both passed on, Wilford in 1947 and Olive in 1960. So one owner house, basically. In her will, Mrs. Arms left the home to Mahoning Valley Historical Society so we could establish our first public museum. We had been in existence for 95 years, and this was the first place that was really our own. And after some renovations, we opened it to the public in 1964. And we've expanded the programs, improved the spaces, both inside and outside. The carriage house behind the building, we converted into a library facility, which now holds the Stewart Media Archives Center. And it's just a very dynamic, part historic home, part local history museum, and part media history museum, all rolled into 1.25 acres.
And again, aside from the Christmas part of this, if you've not been to the Arms Museum, coming down here and seeing how it was back then in the period, it's an amazing, amazing structure to take a good gander through.
Yes, well, Wick Avenue was a very exclusive district. Some of the largest homes in the city, some of the wealthiest families built here and lived here from the mid-19th century into the early 20th century. And really, in terms of, there are a few houses left from the old neighborhood on Wick Avenue, and we really have the only surviving residential landscape around the house, which gives you more of a sense both outside of what's going on, and then you step into their lives here on the inside, Mr. and Mrs. Arms' lives, when you walk in and go through the first floor, which all the period rooms are pretty much the way they were when the family lived here.
Let's name drop, just one more quick one. Name drop some of the people that kind of lived in this vicinity that sort of were the pioneers of bringing Youngstown to where they were, or where we were, I should say.
Yes. Well, to name drop the Arms family, there were numerous. Her parents lived next door in what is now a Romanian Orthodox church. Her sister lived on the other side of that. She had cousins across the street. The Wick family, which was very early in Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley, and Mrs. Arms' mother was a member of the Wick family. They had a number of homes here. The Hitchcock family, which were very much involved with coal and iron and later steel. Baldwin family, Warner family. those are very familiar names,
Yes.
especially the older names like Wick and Arms. You see that on street signs, and you just hear that often when you're around. Joseph G. Butler is another great example of a Wick Avenue resident who, after he had a fire in his home on Wick Avenue, which destroyed his first art collection, he went out and created another one, exclusively American art, and created the Butler Institute of American Art back in 1919.
Bill, you have to love your job to get to know the history of, where we all basically came from in the watching Youngstown go from ground zero all the way up, and you kind of are the guy to go to know all of that as I would say the main historian in the Mahoning Valley.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, because it's much deserved. You probably know more than any of us, and that's why it's so wonderful to come to a place like this to see how it was back in the teens and 20s and 30s back then. You could only envision how the streets were before cars and, like you say, carriage house, and some people don't realize that means that horses went back there, correct?
No, they always had automobiles. Right in that time period, they were transitioning into automobiles. They did have, interestingly, in the carriage house, a stable for a milk cow and a hayloft. I think they may have had horse stables, but really we have a sense that they were using cars at that point.
Back then, wow.
Yeah, and this is one of many neighborhoods in the city that are, well, it's been institutionalized with the churches and other cultural organizations, and especially Youngstown State University, but it still has a very good and strong story, and we enjoy telling that here, along with all the other communities and neighborhoods here in the city and here in Mahoning County and the southern part of Trumbull County. It all ties into a collective memory, which is what our mission is really about, is to collect and preserve and teach this community memory.
Especially the preserve part, that's so important.
Yes, and part of us, if you want to understand our organization, you have to look at it from a standpoint of an iceberg. I mean, we have Tyler History Center downtown Youngstown. We have the Arms Family Museum here on Wick Avenue. We have outreach programs, interesting things, historic house tours and district tours, but we have this enormous collection that we put together for more than 147 years, which is a big part of our operations, is preserving that for this generation, but also future generations to understand what happened here.
And hopefully that just keeps going and going and going, and they keep that alive. But somewhere along the line, somebody made a song and they called Christmas the most wonderful time of the year. And somebody here had the grand idea of turning this beautiful, wonderful structure into a Christmas wonderland of the past. And for the last, you said 14 years, I believe. 14?
Well, it's been 15 years with 14 editions of it.
Okay, yeah, because we missed one with COVID.
Right.
But you turn this into an unbelievable Christmas wonderland, and that's not something that happens just in a couple weeks.
Oh, no. The process of putting it together starts physically and in earnest in mid-September in terms of loading everything in and beginning to do setup. We close off the first floor by the end of September, and then we shut down the entire museum for 2 weeks before we reopen with Memories of Christmas Past. So it's a very involved process, and it's something that goes on year-round. Anthony Aurelia is an employee of the Historical Society. He's our buildings and grounds supervisor, but he is one of these passionate people who has collected vintage Christmas items. He absolutely loves it, and he has a network of people in this area and also further out who are passionate vintage Christmas collectors, and he brings all that together every year in a unique presentation of different generations, different design and style traditions. Like this year, you're going to see things from the late 19th, early 20th century. You're going to see things that are very personal in terms of, we've had a couple of collectors who literally brought their Christmas tree here and their ornaments, how they decorate their tree every year to show the wider community. We talk about the mid-20th century, 1950s, 60s, 70s, which I think a lot about Christmas changed there through television and some of the classic stop animation and cartoons that came out.
Frosty.
Rudolph, right, which our generation remembers very well.
Which, by the way, we got to see. I just was explaining this to my grandson. He's 6 years old, and of course it was couldn't understand it. And I brought over the Rudolph tape, and I said, Grandpa got to watch this one time a year, and if you missed that chance, you had to wait 364 days to see it again. And
right.
They don't understand that concept. So I just put the DVD in, and we get to see it, or we stream it now. We get to watch it anytime we want.
Oh, that's absolutely true, and it was part of our holiday tradition in that time period, 60s, 70s, even into the 80s, before things went to videotape and DVD, that you knew it was on the schedule, and that night you were all around the TV ready to watch it. And it doesn't matter how many times you saw it, you wanted to see it again.
Yep. So one of the other nice things about this, if you've been here in the past, you got to see this wonderful Arms Museum all decorated for Christmas. It's not the same every year, like you're saying. Every year there's more things added, different settings, different ideas brought in, like the Christmas trees from some of the local residents. So it's a constantly evolving and changing wonderland of memories.
Yes, and it is. And what's really the genius of it all, especially with Anthony as the lead designer, is how it complements the house decor. And it does not ever clash with it. It makes you feel like it could have been this way in the Arms family time, even though we know it wasn't. We don't know what they did for Christmas, but it just feels like it belongs here and it's home. We change things. We invite new collectors in on a regular basis, or people bring different types of collections in. One thing that's been a steady, constant force with us in this presentation has been the crystal tree in the library room. Doug Cornwell is one of our volunteers and collectors, and he's done this a number of times. We used to try to switch that out, and whenever we didn't have the crystal tree, we had complaints. It's like, where's that tree? We absolutely love that tree. So it's become more of a standard, though it changes a little bit every year in terms of the colors of the crystals. He's actually changed the tree this year, so it looks altogether different with the tinsel tree, and so there's even more reflection of light coming off of it. So everything is unique, and every year it's different, and we really appreciate those who come back year after year to support the event and see something unique.
I need a second here because I had a flashback. I had a little bit of post-traumatic syndrome here. You mentioned the word tinsel, and a lot of you youngins out there don't know what it was like to put tinsel on a tree one strand at a time. You just didn't get to pull it out of the box and throw it up. No, our parents made us take them out one at a time. Now, move that one up there now. Now you got to take all of these down. That was such a tedious process, but it looked so beautiful when it was all done.
Yes, and that shimmering, almost like a waterfall of light reflecting off of the tree lights and the room. And yeah, it is tedious, but the results are fantastic.
Yeah, and it's one of those Christmas traditions that every family has something. That was one I would assume that I'm glad that one's gone for me at least. All right, so Greg's been around and he's showing the wonderful thing. I think one of the other things that I love when I come here is I'm 64 years old now. So I go back to a time when we walked into this room here, up in the corner there was a bag, and you had a bunch of bags. You had Strauss and McKelvey's. I see the McKelvey's bag, and it immediately takes me back to the day when on Sundays, a lot of us could remember that nothing was open. You went to church, and then you came home and you had family dinner, and there was nothing else to do except have a day with your family, watch TV, go visit family, go visit neighbors or whatever. Yeah. But at Christmas time, we got to go downtown and window shop through Strauss and McKelvey's and the big stores where all those windows had the wonderful, wonderful decorations there. And that was our thing to do on Sundays. And sometimes we would go every single week, and that was our family entertainment. And this is kind of what you're doing here. You're bringing that and those kind of memories back to our public.
Oh, yeah. It's all about nostalgia, and just seeing a store bag or a store box really sets you off immediately. I mean, I'm standing here looking at the wall. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs outside of Youngstown, and I mean, we went downtown because the main department stores were still a big deal, Strauss and McKelvey's, later Higbee's, but on a daily, weekly basis, I'm looking at Hill's department store, which, again, started here, had a larger chain out here, but a discount store, no pretense about it, but it had magnificent toy section. I remember just dozens of model cars and ships and planes and anything you would need, automotive, and we were in there all the time. And so that kind of brings it back. The downtown stores do the parade with Santa Claus coming through downtown and then landing at the department stores. Well, obviously 2 Santa Clauses, but yeah, that just those little things. And even amongst the gifts under the trees, the vintage trees here, or we have a wonderful video we're showing through a vintage 1950s console TV of just scenes of sled riding and in the stores and street scenes. All of that is purposely designed to bring those memories back and to feel good about it.
You mentioned Hills. I could give you 2 little, again, the instant recall of this as you say it, that I can remember 2 great things about Hills. When my children were young, and I'm going back to like 88, 89, 90, when they were just, 5, 6 years old, 2 things that I definitely remember about Hills were the fact that that was kind of like the kickoff for us, because we would go shopping in layaway, which doesn't really exist anymore. Right. You went to Hills in November because you wanted to get first dibs on everything they had in the toy section and put it in the layaway, and you went and you put your $5 or $10 on it every week till you had enough money to go get all the Christmas presents that Santa would bring and deliver on Christmas Eve. The other one was the great Cabbage Patch fight and riot of 1989 and the Austintown one. I was there. My wife said, "Hey, I heard they got Cabbage Patch up at Hills in Austintown Plaza. Go. The girls both want a Cabbage Patch. Got to get them a Cabbage Patch." And it was like the movie with Hartman and Sinbad. Oh God, the name's escaping me right now, but I went there to just walk in and had no idea what I was walking into and the bedlam. And that poor guy was taking him out of the boxes, and they basically threw him out of the way, just pulling those poor Cabbage Patch dolls out of there. And they got him the next year. So
yes, well, it's those are other more colorful memories. Yes. Just that. The trends that come year after year, and
but it's all a part. Every generation has their own thing, and what's great about this is you're keeping alive the history of Youngstown and the Mahoning Valley with this. You guys have done a wonderful, wonderful job here. If you've never been to this, again, how can they get tickets to come down here? What are the times and hours, and how long will this go on?
Yeah, we don't do it on a ticket basis. You can come during our regular hours, which are Tuesday through Sunday, noon to 4 p.m. We have Twilight Thursdays in December. So every Thursday in December, we're open from noon to 7. So you can come after dark, and it's a whole different look at the exhibits and how it plays with the darkness outside.
Oh yeah, the lights have to be wonderful now.
Oh yeah. So it's different, and people come out for that specifically. We're right now in our holiday gift shop with vintage items for sale that we bring in on consignment, and then we have in our other building over at Stewart Media Archives, not only where we take admission, but we have another gift store which has new and some vintage items as well. So I think you need at least an hour just to take everything in and talk, ask questions. People go through multiple times while they're here. We're fine with that. I mean, it's a continuous loop almost. If you come through once and you see somebody say, "I'd like to do it again," and you just make a right turn and go through it again. Our second floor exhibit galleries are open, which are tied into local history, but more specifically our Historical Society's decorative arts collection, and some really unique things there. And then also downstairs, we have Santa's Workshop in our hands-on history gallery, and lots of things you can do there. You can make crafts for the holiday season to take home. We have a big sleigh where you can take your Christmas card photo, or we call them Elfies, and just part of the fun and more, put your hands on it and do something creative while you're in that space.
It's a wonderful tradition. If you've been here before, come on back, because every year is a different look for you. It's so nostalgic, and it will bring up something from anybody's past when you were a kid. One piece will just jog your memory and make you smile. Might even bring a tear to your eye because of, as you get older and you lose family members, you'll think of all the fun you had as a kid during those family holiday and Christmas celebrations. So come on down to the Arms Museum. Bill, thank you so much. You do a wonderful job. Merry Christmas to you.
Pleasure. Thank you, Jeff.
And we hope to see you and come down here. Bring your family, bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring everyone, and make this a family tradition year in, year out. You're supporting our local historical society, plus at the same time, you're going to see a wonderful exhibit. And again, you will want to come back year after year. Thank you very much. I hope that your holiday season is the best one you ever had. You have a great day, a great month, and a great, great holiday season. Merry Christmas to all out there, and we hope to see you down here at the Arms Museum for this wonderful, wonderful setting that they have prepared for you. You take care. We'll see you again real soon with more Business as Usual.